Get over here!
The OnePlus 7 was just announced. It's a phone that I've actually been using for the past couple of weeks, and I thought I would do a user experience review on it while also doing the water test. Now, normally I would do a water test on this phone and then give you guys the results, but because of the nature of this phone, I worry about its ability to survive this water test. It's not kind of IP rated, and there's some features which we'll get into later that kind of make it seem like it's more susceptible to water damage. So I'm gonna start the timer, drop it in, and then start this review because I feel like that's the only way I can really do this. I really don't want to drop this in. Actually, I gotta redo that timer. It's 8 seconds early. Okay, starting now. Can we still see that? Sure, let's roll with it. Okay, OnePlus 7 Pro. The most kind of pertinent feature of this phone is the screen. It's a high resolution screen, 1440p, higher than any other OnePlus phone to this date. And it's also a larger screen. It's a phone that's really big. If you look at pictures and stuff, it doesn't give a clear example of actually how big this phone is. It's something you actually want to pick up and try in a store if you can before you purchase it, because it is a noticeably bigger phone. Now, the two main features of the screen are the 90 Hertz refresh rate, as well as the fact that it has no notch or no kind of cutouts or any kind of disruptions in the display while you're using the front panel. So the 90 Hertz refresh is something that, if you've never seen it before, it's very difficult to showcase this in a video. It's difficult because these videos are shot at 24 frames per second, and what you're seeing is happening at 60 or 90 frames per second. Basically, the whole UI, the whole phone becomes significantly smoother than it actually, hold on. Is that still going? It blacked out for a second, I think it's my periphery. I'm gonna tilt this a little bit so I can see it a little bit better. Okay, but it just looks really smooth. If you can experience this thing in real life, you'll notice it, but I shot some slow motion of this just to kind of showcase to the best of my ability. A high refresh screen on a phone looks much better than a 60 frames per second screen. So the traditional kind of smartphone screen we're used to, 60 frames per second, 90 frames per second, you're seeing a lot more frames, a lot more animation frames. Everything looks better. Games, the UI, just browsing around on the web, on Reddit, everything looks super smooth. It supposedly uses a little bit more battery. I didn't really notice that much of a difference between running at 60 frames per second versus 90, but there is supposed to be a battery difference between the two settings. The removal of the notch is actually something that looks really nice. A lot of companies have been in pursuit of that completely clean front-facing screen. These guys have achieved it. Obviously, they've done a kind of trick with the camera to do it, but it is a very clean looking front, and I think it makes content or anything on your phone look really nice. Now, there is one feature of the screen that I don't love. It's the edges. So if you've used any kind of OnePlus phone in the past, they have a flat surface, like a flat glass surface. The OnePlus 7 Pro has a curved edge. I wish I could pull it out of there right now, but it's basically like the curved edge of a Samsung phone. So it's got this curvature to the display that honestly looks really cool in pictures. I've talked about this in previous videos. It looks great in videos, looks great in commercials and pictures, but in terms of functionality, it doesn't really bring all that much to the table. So I feel like for a lot of users, if you're not used to that curved screen and you're just used to the regular kind of OnePlus flat display, it's gonna be something that you have to either get used to or you'll just really dislike, regardless of how much you use it. And I'm personally someone that prefers that flat display, so I'll gotta be honest, I don't like that curved edge. It's something that I personally don't really like very much. But the display is fantastic. I'd say it's actually one of the best looking displays in the entire market. Really high brightness, good colors with high refresh, and it's got that completely notchless, punch hole-less image up front, which I really like. Now, the purpose of this completely clean front is so that it looks a particular way, but to achieve this, they had to use this weird camera mechanism. So the camera is on this motorized mechanism that you have to activate to pop up. So if you're taking a selfie, you press the button and it'll pop up. But when it's retracted, it just tucks into the machine. You can't see any of the front-facing camera lenses or anything like that. It pops up pretty quickly, press the button and you're good to go. But when it comes to stuff like face unlock, it's a little bit different than normal. So if you activate face unlock, it'll pop up, it'll recognize your face, and then it'll pop back down. And it's actually slow enough, like that whole process of it popping up and popping back down is slow enough that it makes me not want to use face unlock, which is unfortunate because OnePlus phones have extremely fast face unlock features. On the OnePlus 6T, it's like you look at it the wrong way, it'll unlock. It's that quick. And it's kind of annoying that you now have to deal with a slower kind of face unlock time. Because of it, I've actually resorted to using the fingerprint sensor. It's a very fast fingerprint sensor on the OnePlus 7 Pro, but it's just something that I wish, I mean, there's not much they could have done, I'll be honest. They probably couldn't make it pop up and pop back down any faster, but it is an issue. And I think most people that pick up this phone will be leaning towards that fingerprint unlock instead of the face unlock. The pop-up camera also has this feature that's kind of like a fall sensor. If it detects a big enough shift in the accelerometer, it'll actually retract the camera in an attempt to close up the camera system before it hits the ground. It's kind of like a safety mechanism, and it's cool that they thought of that. There's a couple other noteworthy features on the OnePlus 7 Pro. It now has stereo speakers. It's something that OnePlus phones have been missing forever, and it's nice to finally have them. I actually didn't realize it had stereo speakers at first. Like, I didn't read the instruction manual or anything. I just popped it open. I was like, wow, this sounds a lot better. It's been lacking for years. It's nice that they have it. It also has a new haptic engine. If you've used OnePlus phones in the past, you'll recognize that they just don't have a particularly strong vibratory motor. It is much improved on the OnePlus 7 Pro. It honestly feels like any of the best kind of haptic motors on the market. It's really nice. Okay, the camera on this phone. If you're interested, I mean, some people don't care about cameras, but for the people that do, it now rocks a 3-camera system. And I would say that's the biggest improvement in terms of the camera system. Forget about the processing and stuff like that. The fact that it has a wide angle, a standard, and a 3x zoom, that makes, for me personally, that just what makes this camera system much more useful and just much better than the previous versions. I'm someone that enjoys the wide angle. Like, that's how I use my smartphones. I like to take like family pictures and just pictures of stuff and be able to see more stuff in the photo, something I really like. But I wouldn't say that the image quality itself has improved a lot. It feels very OnePlus still. Like, if you zoom in and you look for imperfections, you're gonna find them, but the image quality on this camera is great. It's not the best out there, but I'm very satisfied with it, and I think most people that purchase this phone will be happy with it. It's also a very fast phone. It's running a Snapdragon 855, it's running UFS 3.0 storage. It's like incredibly fast storage speed. It's also running up to 12 gigs of RAM on the OnePlus 7 Pro, so speed is not an issue. It's a very fast overall system. The battery is also quite big. It's a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, and it's also running Warp Charge this year. So if you're unfamiliar with Warp Charge, it's their 30-watt charger. It's a very fast charger. So it'll fill, when I tested this a couple times, it filled to full in just under an hour and a half, and it hit the 50% mark at around 25 minutes. It's a very fast charge. In terms of battery life, I was actually getting around 7 to 8 hours of screen on time. I've actually been playing a lot of this stupid crab game. It's a terrible game, but I'm addicted to it. It's one of those like idle clickers. It uses the processor quite heavily, and even when I had this thing running, I was still getting like a solid 7 hours of screen on time every day. I want to talk about the pricing on this device. So OnePlus, when they first started, put out a $300 phone. They were in the business of killing flagships. They were making flagship killers for really low pricing. And over the years, they've kind of bumped up the price a little bit. Not unexpectedly, and also not in a manner that was unfair, I felt. It's just normal increases in price. And they've come out with a phone that is now $700. Now, they still have their regular OnePlus 7, like no one's forcing you to buy the OnePlus 7 Pro. But when I first found out about the pricing, I was a little bit disappointed. I would consider myself not like an enthusiast, like not like a OnePlus 7 enthusiast, but at least a OnePlus appreciator. I enjoy the brand, I like what they've done in the past, and I like what they try to do. And for them to drop a $700 phone felt so out of place for the brand. It just didn't feel like OnePlus. Like, they've always been kind of that budget market and kind of mid-tier, focusing on value, and suddenly they drop a $700 phone. It felt different. It almost felt, I was going to use the word offensive. That's the wrong word. It just felt unlike the brand. And I think for a lot of enthusiasts that have been with this brand and kind of like cult members of the OnePlus cult, I can understand why people are disappointed that this phone is as expensive as it is. But then I took a step back and realized this is not for the people that are buying the $400 or $500 phones. This is for a completely different segment of people who are buying phones. They still have the regular OnePlus 7 for that mid-tier market, but they have this for just a completely different segment of users. And I like the fact that they did this. I like the fact that they made something that feels different from the other people in that premium market. I like the fact that they did this in a smart way. They didn't just like copy another brand and take all the regular kind of flagship features and make another version of the superstar brands. They made their own variant of it. They spent money on the display, they skipped on IP rating and stuff like that. I'm surprised it's still going. It's been 13 minutes almost. Still alive. Okay, a lot of phone companies right now seem to be trying to extend into that mid-tier or even lower tier market. Like we see Google come out with the Pixel 3a, and it's interesting to see a company like OnePlus kind of move in the opposite direction. They've often been in the mid-tier market, and now they're moving into the more expensive premium segment. If you're interested in this device, you're probably also looking at the Samsung S10 Plus, and it's a phone that can also be purchased for around $700 at this point in time. That's just the nature of Samsung's pricing. It's gone down to that. And if I had to choose between the two, the OnePlus phone has advantages like a 90Hz screen with no notch, with cleaner software and more frequent software updates. And the Samsung phone has stuff like wireless charging, a headphone jack. It has probably better customer support depending on where you live. And I think for a lot of people, it's a tough decision, right? It's like, do you go with the well-known Samsung brand, or do you go with the lesser known or just less popular OnePlus brand that has all this cool stuff? And if I had to choose between the two, not that I would, because truthfully, I like smaller phones. I've mentioned this earlier in the video, but this is a large phone, and for me personally, this is too big of a phone for me. But if I had to choose between the two, I'd probably choose... I'm seeing things. I keep thinking that like I'm seeing distortion on the screen, but it's not. But if I had to choose, I would be going for this phone, only because of that screen. That 90Hz screen looks fantastic. It's something that no other phone has right now that has all these other features, and I think that if you appreciate that stuff like I do, like I like high refresh gaming, I like high refresh everything, all my laptops and displays, I try to go for high refresh. If you appreciate that stuff, if you value that, then this is a really good pickup. But understand that it is a really big phone. Okay, I'm gonna fish this out at this point because it seems like it survived. Okay, it lived. I don't want to do the camera like underwater. I don't want to, maybe I should, just to see. I feel like this is the thing that's gonna break it, but I'm curious. It lasted like 16 minutes underwater, but I'm gonna do a, yeah, I'll do it. Let's just do it. So I'm gonna pop out the camera underwater. I really don't wanna do this, but just for the sake of completion, camera's extended, phone still works. I've retracted the camera. It's still alive. Let me just double check the camera still works. It still pops up. Goes back down. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was shot and feels very different from my regular videos, but I feel like I just had to do it like this because of the water test. Thanks for watching. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. See you guys next time.